36 Sierra November Yankee. No traffic from my side.
Okay, there we go, Adrian. ZS6SNY, ZS6IP is standing by. Let's hear who else is out there for the check-ins. And guys, if you're listening, rather just call in, give us a call sign. Don't be a chicken, don't be a coward, don't be afraid, don't hang around and lurk in the dark. Rather come forward and say hello. That's a polite thing to do. How's that? ZS6IP is standing by. I'll carry on stirring the pot. I wonder where it's George tonight. He's probably sleeping. Hey, unbelievable that. Yesterday, Russia says they didn't attack Ukraine's port of Odessa. Today, they say they did. That's a disaster in the making, that. Okay, 1903. Wow, our time flies. Let's hear any other check-ins for this evening's net. ZS6OP is standing by. And there we go, 1904. Second last call for check-ins. ZS6IP is still standing by. Okay, last call, 1905. ZS6IPS waiting for check-ins. Okay, nothing else heard. Good evening, everybody. I trust everybody as well. This is ZS6IPS opening the weekly net, which runs every Sunday evening for the time being at 1900. The net is intended for radio amateurs who have an interest in emergency communications. However, the net is also open for non-amateurs and amateurs alike, radio amateurs alike on Zoom. They're more than welcome to call in and participate on Zoom and just get involved overall. Quick reminder for all those of you that are listening, please don't be shy. You're more than welcome to join us. I also want to inform you that you do not need to be a member of any organization or club or party or body or anything else along those lines to join the net, despite what you may think or may have been told. All you need is a paid up ECRN license to use any of the licensed amateur bands. So on that note, I'm going to get started. Unfortunately, we don't have very good news at this moment in time, which I will tell you about as soon as I have done the COVID-19 updates, which while we still have a pandemic and a declared pandemic at that, I'm not talking about a declared disaster on a governmental level, but rather a declared pandemic in terms of the international health regulations. So as we sit at the moment, we've got 569,964,096 total cases. Now, last week, due to some of the slowness that was experienced on the site, I was not able to, in actual fact, give the figures last week. So the sort of average that I'm going to work out now is based over a 2-week period instead of 7 days. And we are up an average of 14,700,000. Now, ladies and gentlemen and listeners, that is a bit concerning. I did stipulate last week that the new variant called Ninja had in actual fact resulted in many countries reporting higher numbers. However, at this stage, the numbers are not in actual fact increasing hospitalizations or deaths. However, the virus, the Ninja variant, is spreading quite considerably quicker than previous variants. Let me clear the TIT. Okay, ZS6OPS returning. So the Ninja variant is in actual fact spreading a lot quicker and far more aggressively than previous variants. However, the World Health Organization has reported that the reported number of hospitalizations and deaths has not actually increased. Now, this variant is in actual fact attacking people that are not vaccinated, including those that are vaccinated. And just in case we've got that idiot call sign, blah, 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 please be advised that I only report on what the health authorities will report on and not on fake news and all the other good bits and pieces that go with it. Every single person has that right to decide whether or not they accept this as true or correct. I do not advocate that anything is in actual fact true or correct. However, as a paramedic and ex-paramedic in particular, I do believe in the interest of public health, these figures must be made known. And some of the information provided by the World Health Organization needs to be disseminated amongst all members of the populations. Now, the death toll internationally, 6,383,000. When we have a look at that compared to 2 weeks ago, which was at 635, there is in actual fact quite a considerable increase, and maybe this is something that has kicked in the last week. So I just want to check my figure there quickly of 6350868. Yeah, it's 32,000 cases globally that we've had loss of life on. Still not too high. It's an average of 16,000 a week. The South African national figures have also been extremely low, I must admit. Basically, on a day-to-day basis, we have been below the 500 mark and single digits on the death toll. Now, the amazing thing is that, firstly, the health minister, the South African health minister, did test positive for COVID-19 during the course of the week, as did President Biden. And the deputy president, or the deputy health minister of South Africa, has in actual fact issued a media statement this week stating that the pandemic, let me clear the timer. Okay, ZS6OPS returning. As I was saying, the health minister has in actual fact issued a media statement stipulating that the COVID-19 pandemic most definitely is not over, and that at the end of the day, we should not let our guard down, even though there are no regulations in place stating that we need to do anything in particular. That being said, just straightforward, being diligent, having some common sense, being wise says, look, maybe still wear a mask if you are around people that could in actual fact lose their life due to COVID or any other respiratory disease for that matter, not just COVID. Influenza is another one. And of course, sanitize and wash your hands on a regular basis and physically distance yourself. Okay, now let's move on to the second topic in terms of what has happened globally. Last week, we saw that countries, European countries, Spain, Portugal, England in particular, were being subjected to extremely high temperatures, way above the 40 degrees Celsius mark. And they were battling in excess of 500 fires in total throughout the various countries. Fire departments were under severe strain and pressure, and were declaring all kinds of emergency events and whatever else was required in terms of their local legislation to enable additional support and everything else. Now, on Friday morning, I was actually following a bit of the weather reports for England in particular and the rest of Europe. And the Met Office was basically saying, look, guys, there is good news and there's bad news. And the good news is that the temperatures are in actual fact going to the expected temperatures for the coming days ahead, were in actual fact expected to be much lower than what they had experienced last week. However, you are still going to have extremely high temperatures of 40 degrees. So yes, it seems that there is an ongoing situation that is going to take place. Then thirdly, and I think I'm going to make this the final announcement for this week, and then I'm going to close the net down. Yesterday afternoon, unfortunately, following the second meeting of the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee, meeting regarding the multi-country outbreak of monkeypox. ZS6OP returning. The World Health Organization's Director General issued a statement rather late in the afternoon where he had taken the decision following the fact that the committee members did not reach a consensus regarding their advice on determination. The World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros, has in actual fact declared a public health emergency of international concern for the event of the monkeypox outbreak. The figures that were being reported on yesterday were in excess of 16,000 people had in actual fact contracted monkeypox, and that over 70 countries worldwide, globally, had in actual fact been infected. They are still continuing with some investigations in order to determine exactly how it is being transmitted. They do know that it does have to do with physical contact, mainly between males at present. However, there have been cases of women and children, but on very low numbers that have contracted it. Now, many of the health authorities around the world have in actual fact stipulated that monkeypox can be transmitted by through, for example, not just physical contact, but through bed linen, etc., touching of open sores, and what appears to be like little boils that appear on the skin surface itself. And if those do rupture, then of course there is a fluid discharge, and monkeypox can in actual fact be transmitted that way. So the World Health Organization has begun to implement a worldwide recommendation and various interventions that need to be implemented by the various government organizations. The first thing is not to stigmatize or discriminate against people who in actual fact are infected by monkeypox. Secondly, to establish and intensify the epidemiological disease surveillance. So that one is another critical one, very much like the COVID-19. Intensify the detection capacity by raising awareness and training health workers, including those in primary care, etc. And of course, also raising awareness of the monkeypox virus transmission. ZS6 OPS returning on protective measures and the signs and symptoms of monkeypox among communities that are currently affected in terms of the worldwide outbreak. So very much along the lines of just general health measures that need to be implemented. And for now, it's a case of monitor, have a look to see what's going on. I'm sure there will be a third follow-up meeting probably in the next month to determine whether any further recommendations should in actual fact be put in place. Contact tracing, all of the other good stuff will in actual fact be brought into play on this one, very much along the lines of COVID-19, which we've just experienced. You know, I must say this, for years, and I think especially amongst the younger generation and even the older generation are not actually aware of the fact that there are certain diseases that have to be reported to the health authorities by doctors when such diseases are detected or viruses are detected. I'm not talking about just things like polio and Ebola and things like that, but you got the other things like measles, for example, which was eradicated in South Africa. However, a couple of cases of measles which is highly contagious, have again been reported in the country. You know, this is something that has been ongoing, and the fact that COVID-19 hits such a worldwide, how can I put it, the pedestal, COVID-19 was put on such a high pedestal on the worldwide stage that it is only now a lot of people, especially the younger generation and those that were not informed previously of just how involved government departments, how involved health authorities locally and globally, and how the laboratories and everything else come together to in actual fact ensure that as a country, as a community, that we are protected or could be protected, regardless of what we might think or feel or otherwise. These measures do in actual fact come into play now. Because of the fact that monkeypox has again been put on the same or onto the level of it being a public health emergency of international concern, puts it on the same level as COVID-19. ZS6 OPS returning, and there isn't any level that's higher than that, unfortunately. So this is something we are going to again have to just take cognizance of. And for those of you that recall, on the 1st of January 2020, following the initial announcements made on international TV, it actually wasn't even available on local TV at that stage. On the net on the 1st of January 2020, I reported on the initial outbreak of a case or second case that had been detected in China, in Wuhan, China, and everybody can now see just how that developed over the next 3 months. Fortunately, monkeypox hasn't been as aggressive as what COVID-19 was. Monkeypox was first detected about 7 weeks ago, and of course, it's only 50% of the way. So this is something we will have to keep our eye on. Right, that being said, let's see if there are any other late joiners. Otherwise, I'm going to close the net down. This is ZS6 OPS standing by for further check-ins.
36 GSR.
There we go, Mr. Gideon. Good evening to you and welcome aboard. Hopefully you picked up on a fair bit of what I covered tonight. GSR, I keep thinking gunshot residue. So we'll just keep that one private between you and me. How's that one? Anyway, good stuff. Any other check-ins? Last call, ZS6 Oscar Papa Sierra standing by. All right, at 13 degrees Celsius, 1922 on the 24th of July, 2022. Let's see, does anybody have any questions? Gideon, Adrian, seeing as you are the only two there, everybody else is too scared. Do you have any questions, anything you want to raise, anything you want to add? ZS6 OPS standing by. Yeah, you know what's amazing when people, idiots like that, do that. Do you realize that you just spoke about your own self? I didn't even have to say it. I mean, like, seriously. So there you go.
There's somebody talking over you.
Just my view, 36 OPS, 36 GSR.
All right, Gideon, my humble apologies. I doubled with you. If Adrian didn't tell me on Zoom I was doubling, I would still have been informing everybody that there is an idiot amateur out there that just spoke for himself. You know, you can identify exactly who and what he is just by the sounds that they made, you know. Gideon, do you want to try that again, please? My humble apologies. And I do apologize for, you know, these rude and arrogant people that are out there. ZS6 GSR, ZS6 OPS.
ZS6 OPS, ZS6 GSR. Yes, I heard the donkey go from there. Wonder where that came from. Yeah, just an opinion. This weather, strange weather that we're having around the world. Wonder what impact that's having to all these diseases that are coming out and all these health risks. I'm sure these two things must be linked. ZS6 OPS, ZS6 GSR.
Adrian, if Zoom closes, I'll reopen. Yeah, Gideon, actually, you know, that is something, and Adrian will bear me out. I know that you're not up on Zoom at the moment. This is something that we discussed in quite lengthy detail just before leading up to the actual declaration of a national disaster. We were monitoring the impact of the seasons, not just the high weather conditions. And you know, this is something that we will monitor. At least I will monitor and see what comes out of the World Health Organization's technical committees. And if they determine that the weather does have an impact and effect, you know, in some cases, cold weather gets hold of, well, it kills bacteria for one thing. Some viruses will still be able to work and operate. You know, influenza is a viral infection, normally creeps in wintertime, so that thrives during the colder months. But then you might not have it during the summer months as bad. And what we found is that COVID-19 during the winter months, for example, were still extremely high in number of transmissions, and didn't seem to be impacted by this, even though it is still a respiratory disease. So yeah, no, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered, and you know, I think it's an excellent question. It makes for a great research project, and if people can come forward with legitimate scientific information on it and share that with communities, you know, that will be beneficial. The only problem that I do have is all these armchair critics or armchair scientists that didn't pass science or even take biology in school, that have got comments to make about, you know, things that they never studied, etc. That then does become a problem. And worldwide, this is why the whole aspect of fake news was in actual fact frowned upon and communities were were lambasted for it, so to speak. So, you know, it's not just a matter of opinion or out of interest sake. I think it's a matter of fact that needs to be made known. And as I say, we need true scientific evidence and research into it, and that should be shared. Any other questions, Gideon? ZS6 GSR, ZS6 OPS?
Yeah, ZS6 OPS, ZS6 GSR. No, I was just wondering about this weather. So strange to see this strange weather around the world. I really don't recall many years ago this weather to be this extreme. I think we're quite lucky here in South Africa, just on the weather that we have. But I think Northern Hemisphere, maybe it's all the pollution that they put into the atmosphere that's had some impact. But I must say, I think we're getting the better side of this. Our winters maybe not as cold, and at least we haven't experienced the 40-degree heat waves in the last 2 years. I think 3 years ago we had a bit of a heat wave, but I think we're quite lucky here in the Southern Hemisphere. Those guys in the Northern Hemisphere, Europe and UK, are really having a tough time. ZS6 OPS, ZS6 GSR.
Yeah, no, affirmative on that one, no doubt about it. And the funny thing is, Al Jazeera is currently reporting from Beijing with regards to the medical personnel that are conducting COVID-19 tests. Now, one of the things that did happen in the last 2 weeks, another Chinese city of another 5 million people was put in lockdown because 300 odd cases had in actual fact been reported. So the Chinese are still conducting COVID-19 tests. And what the report was basically saying now is that all of these medical personnel are conducting these tests whilst wearing hazmat suits, and China is experiencing temperatures in excess of 40 degrees. And of course, this now places risk on the health workers themselves, which is something that needs to be considered. But then in addition to that, because of this high temperature now, they are concerned that the melting of the glaciers is going to bring about flooding and dam collapses. So, yeah, very interesting. Okay, guys, look, 1929. I'm going to shut down there. Gideon, I'm going to reopen Zoom. You're more than welcome to join Adrian and I on Zoom. I'm going to shut the net down on 625. And for the week forward, as I said previously, please be considerate if you go around elderly people or people with other ailments that could in actual fact lose their lives due to COVID-19, even the flu, influenza, any other respiratory or COPD diseases that they may have, then rather wear a mask, physically distance yourself, and wash and sanitize your hands on a regular basis. And just as a matter of interest, there is another name for a donkey, and don't be a donkey. Let me put it to you that way in a diplomatic manner. And for the week ahead, be safe, be prepared, and of course, be happy. This is ZS6 OPS releasing 145.625 for general use. Cheers all. Fucking ass made an ass of himself. Wait, let me stop this recording. Oh, why doesn't it want to stop?
I wanted to go onto the air now and say, it is monkeypox, not donkeypox.
Yeah, what can we say?